Hello, friends. Welcome back to Corey's Corner. This is a podcast where I share strategies, tools, and knowledge to overcome life's challenges and experiences. Today, I'm going to talk about the relentless pursuit of perfection. Before getting into things, I do want to say that the following information is provided for educational or informational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation with healthcare professionals. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any healthcare decisions or to obtain guidance about a specific medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of any of the following content. It's been a while since I have posted an episode, and I sincerely apologize for the delay. And part of the delay has to do with my perfectionism. I am a perfectionist person. I have been trying to, I have been in the back of my mind, I've been thinking the next episode has to be perfect, which is a distorted thought. And I want the next episode to be perfect, or I wish it were perfect, which again are all distorted thoughts. And there's been a lot going on in the last couple months. I do want to catch you guys up on a little bit of what I've been up to, but I also will get into perfectionism, the different types of perfectionism, and some of the psychological motivations behind striving for perfection. There are pros and cons behind perfectionism, just as almost anything in life, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into that. And talk about the potential mental health impacts, such as anxiety, depression, and burnout behind perfectionism. So, where have I been? I I have been fairly busy. Since I last recorded an episode, I started a new job. I won't get into the details of it just to keep my private life private and this podcast separate from my private life, but I have started a new job and it's been taking a lot of my energy, a lot of my most of my time, and that has been a big adaptation and I've been wanting to do my best. So it's been really fun. I'm very satisfied with this new job. It's something that I was very much looking forward to doing. I was very much looking forward to this change in environment, and I think that I've learned quite a bit and I've grown already in this short span of time. Aside from this new job, I have traveled a bit. I visited two new states, New Hampshire and Maine, and I summited Mount Monroe and Mount Washington. And that was one heck of a challenge. It was something that I learned about recently, type 2 fun, something that is apparently not enjoyable to do in the moment, but that looking back is something you kind of like you look back and you're like, "Oh, that was actually pleasant to do." Looking back, it was still wasn't very pleasant to do because it was hot and cold. It was very humid. It was raining. It was most of the path that we took was on rocks, which was the first time that I hiked on so many rocks. And I learned that I do not enjoy hiking on such big boulders. And then what else? And it was very foggy, very foggy. It was still nice. I still had some nice views, but when I got to the summit, it was very anticlimactic where I couldn't see more than 10 meters away from me. So it was really unfortunate getting to the summit, but they say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, or I think that's what they say. And I think that I'm very proud of myself for having completed this very challenging hike. I think it's the highest peak in the northeastern states. I may be wrong. I don't know. But there's just something about feeling so alive when you're hiking. And that was also the first time I went camping. So something that I've been very much looking forward to doing for many, many years. That weekend was something very big. So I summited that mountain, those two peaks, and I went camping for the first time, and it was better than I could have ever imagined. I loved it. I love camping. I knew that I would love it, and I love camping, and it was absolutely great. It was car camping, so we still had some luxuries like showers and running water and that kind of stuff. But it was very enjoyable to do, so that was fun. I'm not going to go in order because I don't think I can remember everything in chronological order. I was a bridesmaid in a wedding. I have a friend who got married a couple weeks ago. That was fun. I've been a bridesmaid a couple times before, and it was just really nice to see two friends who I saw going from being acquaintances to being husband and wife over the course of, I think, 7 or 8 years. And that was really, really nice also to not just witness, but be a part of. So they're two very good friends that I hold very dear to my heart. And I really am happy for them. And that was a very lovely day. What else have I been up to? I went to the Grand Prix in Montreal for the first time. That was quite an event. Very, very, very fascinating, very enjoyable. A lot of people, very loud. I didn't expect it to be that loud, but very loud. But it's just so nice to see so many people who are passionate about this same thing all gathered in one like for one event. I don't know. It was just really fun. It's just like a nice, enjoyable weekend overall. I can't think of what else I've been up to. I'm sure there's other things that I've done. I think I went camping again. Yes, I went camping again. So your girl goes camping once and then she's like, okay, let's just do it again. And I went camping again, and that was nice. It was a very, very nice place, not too far away from my house and a couple hours away. And it felt like the tropics, but in Canada. Love, 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 love. If you want to see some behind the scenes, you can see on my TikTok and Instagram. I believe I posted some stories and some snaps on that. So check that out at From Corey's Corner for both Instagram and TikTok. And my handles are in the description of the podcast. And there's been a bunch of other things as well that I've been up to, but I can't think of them right now. But I've been just trying to just enjoy life day by day. And it's been also like in the back of my mind, I'm like, the podcast, the podcast, the podcast. And then work and all these things. So I have been neglecting the podcast, and I'm disappointed in myself for doing so, but I am back. I'm back. I hope to keep up with the momentum in the upcoming months and reach my goal for this year. We'll see. I don't know if it's possible, but we'll see. That's one of the things that I find difficult is when you're a perfectionist, it's hard to let go of that ideal that you have set in your mind. I don't think I have a very healthy type of perfectionist like mentality, which there's adaptive and maladaptive perfectionism, where adaptive perfectionism, it increases the level of life satisfaction. You can set standards according to your level of achievement in various fields in your life. Whereas maladaptive, it tends to decrease the level of life satisfaction. Typically, maladaptive perfectionism doubts, concerns regarding decision making, fear of making mistakes, and then doubting yourself. So that's very much me. I'm guilty. Guilty. And it's something that I'm working on. Along with those types of perfectionism, there's different theories that try to define perfectionism as well. There isn't one set definition or one set description of the types of perfectionism. One that Fang and Liu from 2022 describes is normal versus neurotic perfectionism, where Normal perfectionists will have positive intrinsic motivation. They're able to set goals according to their strengths and their weaknesses, and they typically feel good after achieving them. And they have flexibility in different situations where they will lower their standards or their need for accuracy in order to adapt to the situation. Whereas a neurotic perfectionist typically has unrealistic goals, they're typically unflexible, and they don't modulate their standards. And a lot of the times, a neurotic perfectionist will not be satisfied with their efforts in the end. Perfectionism can have an impact on mental health. Some studies show that depression is tightly related to perfectionism. That's the most common mental health disorder that is related to perfectionism. It's also related to anxiety, social anxiety being the most common one, and where people will pay attention, like a very strong attention to details. Can be related also to obsessions, eating disorders, and psychosomatic disorders. Perfectionists tend to blame themselves for minor mistakes. They tend to question their ability to communicate, which can also lead to social withdrawal. And they have a severe concern for making mistakes. So I read a book that I was long to get through, but I'm very glad that I went through it. And I found it was easier to, overall, I think certain kinds of books, I find it easier to listen to rather than read. This book is called When Perfect Isn't Good Enough. And I finished it, I think in May or in June, I don't quite recall. It's by Martin M. Anthony, who is a PhD, and Richard P. Swinson, medical doctor. It's the second edition of the book that I read. It provides strategies for coping with perfectionism, read by Mike Chamberlain. I really enjoyed this book. I What I liked about it is that the book is broken down into three sections. There's one part where they delve into perfectionism. What is perfectionism? What impact does it have on your health and well-being? What is perfectionism and what kind of thoughts are associated to perfectionism? And what types of behaviors are associated to perfectionism? So it really lists things out in a very clear way where it basically calls you out. It calls you out, and a lot of times I was like, "Uh-oh, I do that," or "Uh-oh, that's me," or "Oh, maybe I used to do that. I don't do that anymore." And after that, after they talk about perfectionism as a whole, then they talk about strategies. So in the beginning, I was kind of a little bit nervous. I felt a little bit nervous. I was like, "Oh no, these are all the things that I'm doing wrong." Of course, a perfectionist thought. And then part two of the book talks about strategies for overcoming perfectionism. And it talks, there's a couple of different chapters, one on measuring your perfectionism, then developing a plan for change, which I really, really enjoyed, changing changing perfectionist thoughts, something that I've been working on and continue to work on, changing perfectionist behaviors, and accepting imperfection, something that I have decided quite a while ago, actually, and especially with the podcast, that I decided, you know what? I need to embrace imperfection because life is perfectly imperfect. But I'll get into that a little bit later. And part three of the book goes into working with specific problems and perfectionism and talks about perfectionism and depression, perfectionism and anger, perfectionism and social anxiety, perfectionism and worry, and obsessive compulsive disorder, and dieting and body image. And then it concludes the book with the fourth part talking about preventing perfectionism from returning. I think it's a very good book that provokes a lot of self reflection and helps you slowly. Well, for me, it took maybe a month and a half, and I read it while driving, I read it while running, while riding my bike, or sometimes even to fall asleep. And it helped me slowly at my pace get through changing these perfectionist thoughts and behaviors. And I thought it was very, very helpful. So I highly recommend this book. So again, it's When Perfect Isn't Good Enough by Martin Anthony and Richard Swinson. I will include the name and title in the description of the podcast. And I think it's very nice to strive for perfection. I think people have their various reasons for striving for perfection. I sure do. At the same time, I've come to learn in my quest for perfection, I'm kind of setting myself up for failure because perfection doesn't exist. There's no such thing. And as I'm seeking perfection, I'm kind of just setting myself up for failure where it's not going to happen. So instead, I would prefer to set SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, realistic, and time bound or time specific. And those are what we call SMART goals. And one thing that I learned that is very important to keep in mind is that SMART goals can be, or goals in general, can be modified. And as I mentioned earlier, with the different types of perfectionism, with the adaptive and maladaptive, and the normal and neurotic perfectionism, it's that modulation of expectations and in the goals. It's being able to change the way that you perceive what your expectations are in order to adapt to a situation and to feel okay within yourself with that. And I think that takes quite a bit of work. It did for me at least. It's still a something that that I continue to work on. But I think it's really important to understand that with conflicting priorities, with change in priorities, with change in desires, that goal to retain that goals can change, and that's okay. You can change a goal, you can let go of a goal, and that all brings me back to the podcast. I initially set a goal to publish 12 episodes of the podcast, one episode on the first Monday or the first Sunday of every month. And on the first month that I missed it, I kind of I it didn't bother me as much. The second month it started to bother me and I started thinking I failed. And that's just sort of thought, first of all. I didn't fail. But instead I learned that instead of seeking perfection, my energy is probably better spent on seeking growth and learning. And that ties along with what I talked a little bit about in episode 1 about self actualization from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where I think it's important to ensure that basic needs, or simple or little basic needs, are met, everyday needs are met, and that will help you achieve those bigger goals that you set for yourself in life. For example, it's important to feed yourself properly. It's important to get enough rest, sleep. It's important every day. It's important to exercise. It's important to have shelter. It's important to socialize. So, by ensuring that you do those little things, that just ensuring that you do, let's say, those 5 little things every week, that is already a success in and of itself. And beyond that, it'll also, doing those things will also allow you to step higher on Maslow's pyramid, high, on Maslow's pyramid, and be able to achieve that next level, that next goal that you want to achieve. And it 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 gives it's positive reinforcement. It doing what you need to do to ensure that you are your best self to be able to achieve those goals. Unless your basic needs are met, according to Maslow, your higher needs cannot be met. So, your ultimate goal or need, which most people is self actualization, which looks different for every single person, wouldn't be able to be met unless if you take care of those basic needs. And I think that breaking things down and also breaking things down in that way and breaking things down larger goals into smart goals and smaller goals, I think that's a healthier way and a less perfectionist way of looking at things. About reframing how, first of all, it's reframing how you view things. And it's also reframing, okay, what is the goal? Or things have changed, or my interests have changed, my situation has changed. What do I want my new goal to be? How do I adapt to the situation? And instead of bringing yourself down, it's about thinking about what we have a situation set in front of us now. How are we going to respond to it moving forward in a healthy way without bringing ourselves down? One of the things that a coworker told me once is do your best, forget the rest. And that got me through a lot of challenging days with me fighting perfection when I started a new job a couple years ago and I wanted to know everything and anything that I could possibly know, which is absolutely unrealistic and also something that I struggle with starting with this new job. And that is something that I also had to let go of is perfection is when I write notes and charts and when I submit reports, I don't want to make a mistake or I want it to be absolutely perfect. But in reality, it doesn't matter, first of all. Second, you can always go back and change things. Always. I find that since learning do your best, forget the rest, I have more satisfaction in what I do. In seeking perfection, it's tiring. It's tiring. It drains a lot of energy. It sucks the fun out of doing things and even personally for me, which I understand is more a maladaptive and neurotic type of perfectionism that I have, it doesn't really bring much satisfaction and joy in the end. And by focusing on just doing your best or doing my best, I find that I've been able to have a healthier view of my achievement and my success. And that is one of the pros of perfectionism. It's the drive for perfection. It can be a powerful motivator and it can push individuals to achieve their goals and reach their full potential. But when taken to an extreme and in an unhealthy way, that's where there's a fine line. There are some pros and there are some cons with striving for perfection. With perfectionism, some of the pros include having high standards and quality. So, people who are perfectionists tend to strive for excellence and they produce work of exceptional quality due to their high standards, and they have high attention to details and they're very thorough and meticulous, which can lead to fewer errors and a more polished final product. People who are perfectionists tend to use their perfectionism as a powerful motivator, which pushes them to achieve their goal and to reach their full potential. And they often receive recognition and rewards for their efforts, which can open up to further opportunities. Constantly striving for better can lead to personal growth and skill development. And perfectionists are often lifelong learners. They continually seek to improve and expand their knowledge and abilities. So, perfectionism can contribute to personal growth and development. And in many professions, being a perfectionist can lead to career advancement due to the high quality and reliability in one's work. It can aid in an individual's professional advancement. Perfectionists are often highly focused and dedicated on their goals, which can lead to achieving ambitious objectives and looking at the cons to balance things out. As I mentioned earlier, the constant pressure to be perfect can lead to chronic stress and anxiety and can have negative impacts on mental health. And the inability to meet self imposed high standards can result in feelings of inadequacy and depression. Perfectionists may procrastinate or become paralyzed by the fear of not being able to meet their high standards, leading to delays and missed opportunities. And I'm laughing because that is very much me. Perfectionism can also lead to unrealistic expectations of others, causing strain in personal and professional relationships. It can also result in social isolation as perfectionists may prioritize work over relationships. Spending excessive time on details and revisions can lead to inefficiency and decrease overall productivity. Also, something I have observed with myself. So, overall, perfectionism can lead to decreased productivity, but also burnout because the relentless pursuit of perfection can lead to burnout, reducing overall effectiveness and well being. Perfectionists may avoid taking risks or trying new approaches for fear of failure, stifling creativity and innovation. And they may put an overemphasis on perfection, which can inhibit the creative process, which often involves trial and error. Perfectionists often have unrealistic expectations of themselves, leading to harsh self criticism and low self esteem. And that also can be exacerbated after setting unattainable goals and is also commonly seen in perfectionists is setting unattainable goals which can result in a constant sense of failure and dissatisfaction. While striving for perfection can lead to high quality work and significant achievements, it's really important to find a balance to avoid the negative impacts on mental health, relationships, and overall well-being. Embracing imperfection and setting realistic goals can help mitigate some of the downsides of perfectionism, allowing individuals to achieve success without compromising their happiness and health. In the description box, I will include a link to handouts that you can refer to for perfectionism. And if you find that perfectionism is having a negative impact on your health, whether it's physical or mental, or your well being, please seek some assistance with a medical provider and get some of the support that would be helpful for you to overcome this challenge. As always, thank you for listening. Feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications to be alerted when new videos are posted. I don't know when I'm going to be posting a new episode. Hopefully, it'll be within the next month. I will do my best to post on Instagram and on TikTok within that next month as well. And until then, I thank you for tuning in to Corey's Corner. Stay curious, stay inspired, and always keep exploring. I'm Corey, and this is Corey's Corner.